Hello and welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. Zystral here, and today we'll be starting up a new series called Judge Corner. This series is aimed at those of you who are looking to gain a deeper insight into the rules, either to improve yourself as a player, or you're aiming to become a Bushiroad judge later down the line. The purpose of this series is not to answer whatever random ruling questions you have, but if you do have a specific query that you want to get a second opinion on, then feel free to leave a comment. The only stipulation is that if you don't like what you hear, that's not my problem, and you relinquish the right to complain. So I am a qualified Bushiroad judge for Vanguard and Vice Schwartz, and I've been certified by Bushiroad EU. All rules and facts are cross-checked with fellow extremely capable judges in Asia and Japan. So, on to episode 1. The best resource for any judge are the English comprehensive rules and the Japanese Q&A. The comprehensive rules are updated now and again, so it's best to know how to navigate there yourself rather than saving a link. To do this, you go onto the English Vanguard webpage, you click on Rules and Q&A, and then you scroll to the bottom, or towards the middle bottom, and there'll be a button that says, click here to get the latest comprehensive rules. Make sure it is up to date by looking at the file name in your web browser and make sure that the date written on it is relatively recent. As for the Japanese Q&A, that's a little bit harder to get to, and obviously it's in Japanese, so you might have trouble reading it, but Google Translate does a pretty good job at helping you cope. So to get there, you go onto the Bushiroad Vanguard website as normal, and this time you can remove the EN, and that will redirect you to the Japanese website. From there, you click the button that says Q&A, and then you'll see that they have a lot of different boxes, but the one titled Q&A will be written Q&A in English. As this is the very first video of the series, we're going to cover a very basic yet core part of the rulings, and that is ability standby and ability resolution. What does standby and resolution mean? Well, before we talk about that, we should briefly talk about abilities. So you'll see that every ability is preceded with either act, cont, or auto. These are respectively short for activated, continuous, and automatic. Act abilities are pretty simple. During your main phase, you declare that you are activating it, you pay the cost, and you do the thing. The other way of saying during your main phase is whenever you have a play timing, but we'll come to that in a bit. Cont abilities are a bit weirder because they're always active. Their effects can be either minimal, or they might fundamentally change how the game works. As far as this video is concerned, cont abilities should never ever be primed for resolution, so to say, so we can ignore them for now. However, conts themselves are a whole different can of worms, and we'll definitely look at that in a later video. Auto abilities are where things start to get really weird. So for those of you who play other card games, these are what we refer to as triggered abilities. Their formatting is usually auto, when an event happens, you may pay the cost, if you do, and then the actual effect, which is, do whatever it is the effect does. Something occurs within the game that this ability sees happen, and so it activates or triggers, or to use slightly technical lingo, proc. Due to the manual nature of firing act abilities, it's impossible to have multiple act abilities primed at once. When you declare a startup, you are locking yourself into the resolution of that ability. Act abilities resolving may in turn cause an event that makes an auto trigger, but the auto ability and the act abilities themselves exist in effectively different spaces of time. It's impossible for multiple act abilities to occupy the same time frame. With auto abilities, however, they will always respond to their trigger regardless of cause. If multiple auto abilities that share a trigger exist, they will all try to go off at the same time. Thus, in a way, they're competing for your attention as to which one resolves first. Because even though they exist in the same time frame, you can't resolve multiple abilities at once. You have to go one at a time. Whenever a trigger for an auto ability is met, that ability is considered to have gone on standby. That is, it is standing by, waiting for you to get to it and resolve. So to recap, only one ability can ever be resolving at any one time. Auto abilities can trigger and standby at any point, and an auto ability on standby has not yet resolved. So that are the basics. Now that we've covered that, I've managed to trick you into the real monster in the room, check timings. I could sit here forever and explain where check timings occur and how they work, but that would take, well, forever. Not really. But in general, if you read the comprehensive rules and you just Control F for check timing, that'll cover most of the bases. The important thing for now is that rule actions happen before abilities resolve. Things like calling over units will happen before the auto abilities resolve altogether. Note, resolve, not activated. If you call over a unit that has an auto that activates when something gets called, it will see that unit get called, its auto ability will go on standby, then by rule processing, the unit will retire due to an overloaded circle, and then the ability will actually resolve because of the check timing. For the Magic players here watching, a rule action is basically the same as a state-based action, and check timings and play timings are effectively priority. Similarly, in between each ability that resolved during a check timing, you would do a rule processing. So if you've got multiple auto abilities that are on standby, you resolve one, rule action. then you resolve the other one, and then do the rule action again. So that's one of the small oddities about check timings. Though usually the game is pretty clear about how and when check timings occur, and most of the time check timings won't really interfere with each other. As well as that, abilities resolving in a check timing are usually straightforward. So now that we've covered the absolute basics, we can take a look at some examples to help wrap your head around things. So one pretty good basic example is Shadow Paladin. A lot of Shadow Paladin units have retiring your own rearguards as a cost, and quite a few Shadow Paladin units also do things when they are retired for the cost or effect of your card. So let's say you have Dragfencer Dagda in play, pretty good card, and you've got a Belial Owl in play as well. You have the play timing to attack with your Dagda. By declaring the attack, Dagda's auto ability triggers and goes on standby. At this point, at the end of when you finish declaring your attack before the attack continues, there is a check timing as per the rules. Because there are no rule actions to process, you move to resolve any auto abilities. In this case, there's only one auto ability, and that's Dagda. So you resolve him, and you pay one counter blast and retire your Belial Owl. This action causes Belial Owl to go on standby. However, because we're still resolving Dagda, before you can resolve Belial to draw a card, you must finish resolving Dagda by calling 2 grade 1s from the deck. Once Dagda is fully resolved, there may be more auto abilities that went on standby as a result of being called by Dagda. For example, let's say we call Daylad from Dagda's effect. Now you have multiple auto abilities on standby. You have the Belial that went on standby when you paid the cost, and you've got the Daylad that went on standby when she came into play. So now that Dagda's ability is finished resolving, you're back into a check timing because you have 2 auto abilities that need to resolve, but you can choose which one to resolve first. If you choose to resolve Belial first, you draw your card, then move on to resolve Daylad. Otherwise, you resolve Daylad first, and then move on to resolve Belial. It's all good, pretty simple. But what about a less straightforward example? One interesting ruling that's come up since the release of Ultimate Stride has been the way Shiranui interacts with Drachma. Both of the Dominate Shiranui Grade 3s have a Stride skill that triggers when you stride, and Drachma has a skill that triggers when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, i.e. when you stride into it. If you Ultimate Stride into Drachma, you have 2 auto abilities that have different triggers, but trigger off the same action, and as a result, share a check timing. So as a Dominate player, it makes sense to resolve Shiranui's Stride skill first, because if you wipe their field with Drachma, there'll be nothing to dominate. So let's do that. You dominate one of their units. You start to attack with it. Hang on. When you declare an attack, there's a check timing at the start of the attack, section 7.4. For reference, this is the same check timing that allows cards such as Enigmatic Assassin and Blaze effects to work the way they do. And then if we look at section 8.4.12, if any automatic abilities controlled by the turn player are standing by, then the turn player chooses one of them, plays it, and resolves it. But wait a minute, didn't we just say that other abilities can't interrupt abilities resolving? Yes. However, Dominate is a special case, wherein the fact that the ability artificially generates an attack step in the game, that allows there to be a check timing during the resolution of the ability. Thus, while the Dominate is still resolving, at this attack step timing generated by Dominate, we still have to resolve Drachma. When you resolve the Drachma, your opponent's field, barring the dominated unit, gets wiped, they rewrite from hand, and then you continue to attack their new Vanguard with the dominated unit. Note how any auto ability that's gone on standby has to resolve at the next available check timing. If you choose not to resolve Drachma during this Dominate attack step, then when the Dominate finishes, you no longer have Drachma's auto ability on standby ready to resolve. You've missed it. So unfortunately, you cannot wipe the dominated unit as well, but on the plus side, you get a chance at attacking their new, potentially not grade 3 Vanguard with the dominated unit. There's a similar example with how Hollow interacts with the end phase, but the end phase is also pretty complicated on its own, so we can leave it for a future video. That'll be it for this first installment of the new series. Unfortunately, I can't promise a consistent schedule with these, as with all our other videos, but with this year's Spring Festival starting soon, and Autumn Circuit coming up on the horizon, this video will hopefully be of use to some of you who are aiming for your certification this year, or just want to make sure that your first tournament goes smoothly, and that you understand the game so that no one tries to pull a fast one on you. So as always, don't forget to check out YellowCard Vanguard on all the social media things, do the like and subscribe as you always do, and for now, we'll see you guys next time.